segment of Good Morning Africa. We are coming to you live from our studios here at number 48 Swanika Street in Abilingbe. Also live across some 46 other African countries via satellite. In some parts of Europe and South America, we are also ever present. My name is Koku Alormasor. I'm sitting in as usual for Kwame Owusu Dan. So now before I introduce my topics, we've been joined by Comrade Murtala Mohammed. He is the Member of Parliament for the Good People of Tamale Central. It's been a while. It's been a while, Honorable. A hearty good morning to you.
Good morning.
And I trust you are.
Alhamdulillah, I'm okay. I'm doing well. I was concentrating on something. I took a breather actually from the media. It is sometimes good to just give a little space, you know. And there were a lot of calls, a lot of people, even within the party and the leadership of our communication. I was always giving excuses. Anytime they asked me to go for any media program, I would give an excuse, but it was a deliberate decision to just stay away from it. And more importantly, I also needed some little time to concentrate on some academic work I'm doing. So I took advantage of the break in Parliament to be able to finish hard. So this was one of the reasons.
I didn't particularly hear anything about your constituency during the parliamentary primaries. Is it one of the constituencies that was put on hold?
No, I went unopposed. Oh, okay. And I think that was the reason. And I didn't make a fuss, you know, out of it. I didn't want to talk much about it. For me, I think that it's Allah's blessing that you go unopposed. Because if for nothing at all, I mean, you avoid the rancor that otherwise, you know, comes with internal party contest. But it doesn't suggest that it will be less expensive, actually. And for me, it is by the will of Allah and also the good work we have done. I believe that we have done a lot in Tamale Central. I mean, several or some colleagues of mine, you know, lost, which was so hurtful to me as a person. Notable of them is my senior brother, Honorable A.D. Hussein. But that is not to say that whoever wins, I wouldn't work for the person for the good of the NDC. We did campaign for him, but I listened to him on, I think, Obasma, or one of the programs. He demonstrated once again how deeply rooted and profound he takes his, you know, Islamic teachings and understands that it is just the will of Allah. Another person whose loss actually was a worry to me much was my good friend, Honorable Edward Bauer. And I think that Parliament will be losing an outstanding personality in terms of his profound intellect and contribution towards the work of Parliament. And what we have done together as a caucus, I think that he's been very, very instrumental. Honorable Samson, Navrongo Central, was another casualty, which for me was extremely worrying. And other senior colleagues of mine, Honorable Uyomi, Honorable Gidesu, I came to meet them in Parliament to receive Parliament. And they actually guided and supported us, you know, and few other colleagues of ours who lost. I mean, it was something that was won. But of course, it's democracy. At any point in time, people have the right to contest. And I just want to use the opportunity to call on the people of Sanargo, because after the elections, I realized that there have been some press conferences held, you know, threatening that they will not vote for our candidate Ataisa. And I think that they need to exercise patience, because considering the parliament we have today, we certainly need the numbers. I am very convinced by Allah's will that His Excellency President Mahama shall be elected the President of the Republic of Ghana in the December 2024 elections. So the people of Sanargo, I don't think that they would want to see us having a hung parliament. So if we begin issuing such threats, I think that it won't go well for the NDC. So I just want to plead with them that they should. I know people are angry. I know they are angry, they are dissatisfied. They supported a particular candidate. So if that candidate had won, I think others were issuing such threats, they would have been worried. They would have been calling on them to exercise patience and support. So it's equal vein. I'll plead with them that, look, we can understand their pain. I went there to campaign for Honorable AB. at the expense of a lot of attacks. You know, people sent me messages. There were a lot of attacks why I would come and campaign for him. It wasn't only me, Honorable Suhine also campaigned, Honorable Haruna, we all campaigned. Yet people were angry with us, you know, for one, supporting a senior brother. ABF Seni is like a senior brother to me and a senior colleague in Parliament, and he's also the leader of the NDC caucus in Northern Region. I mean, so if such a person calls on you to come and assist, naturally you would. In fact, even if he never called, one would have, you know, felt obliged to do that. He's an outstanding personality we are losing in Parliament. You know. So, despite all this, I still want to call on those who are aggrieved that they should not say that they won't vote for the official candidate. I don't think that is what the NDC wants. So I'll plead with them to exercise patience, support Ataisa, because Sanargu seat is a seat we certainly cannot afford to lose. And I tell people, in Tamale Central in 2020 elections, almost 5,000 voted skirt and blouse. Wow. Yes, almost 5,000. And one because I hadn't been an MP for Tamale Central before. So what could be the reason? There are several reasons I can put out here. MPP used money a lot, and there were other internal factors. And I really don't think if the NDC was winning the seat with smallest of margins, I don't think that we would have won the elections. So, I mean, as a result of such internal squabbles, you would find a lot of seats we lost marginally. You know, some of the internal squabbles you would know, some you wouldn't know. In my case, in Tamale Central, we had primaries. I won resoundingly. You know, but of course, you still find some few people who will be disgruntled. We can't be doing this because you support a particular candidate. You go into the elections, your candidate lost. You should understand it's the will of Allah. What if your candidate won and others would want to vote skirt and blouse? I really don't think it should be pleasing to you. So I think I would plead with them to exercise patience. I know that certainly is not the position sanctioned by Honorable ABF Hussein. He certainly wouldn't. I know him too well. And I think that Ataisa, he made a very good move. He went to Honorable ABF Husseini's house. I think he should continue with that. I think that Honorable ABF Husseini has a critical role to play as far as the campaign in Sanargu is concerned. So even people who are aggrieved, once they see him campaigning for Ataisa, I believe that you exercise patience. Instances where you have people who are no longer, you know, contesting and refuse to campaign openly, sometimes it's deliberate. They deliberately wouldn't want to come to campaign, and such, for me, doesn't show patriotism as far as, you know, party support and belief in the principles of the party is concerned. But once you come on board, at least those who were angry, seeing you campaigning with the candidate, I believe that they would sober down. And so I just want to, and it is not only Sanargu. I believe there's several constituencies where we have had this. The good thing about the NDC primaries is that it's been mild. You haven't seen a lot of, you know, rancor and division. You know, MPP, I pray most likely they should experience a lot of division, but that's unimportant. That is what I should be praying for. But the signals are very clear. The signals are very clear, because you see, with the NDC, we didn't have anybody. I mean, few people contested President Mahama. The stakes were not very high. Everybody knew that President Mahama was going to win overwhelmingly. But in your case, you have two blocks. You have the Asante block, and you have the Chim supporting Baumia. You know, the stakes are
but we will have a very peaceful.
No, your case is serious because there have been a lot of allegations now. You have the former MP for Atlanta who says, and I quote, that presenting Dr. Baumia is like selling a dog, selling. He said no. He said a pig meat. He was doing it for a reason. He presented pork. He said selling a pig meat in a Muslim community. It's very heavy. You know, so when you have such attacks, your case is tribal. Your case is sectional, is factional. You have an Achim block that is supporting Dr. Baumia because ostensibly they see him to be someone who can protect their loot, and you have Alan Block, the Ashanti Block supporting Alan. No, it's true. You have Alan faction. You have Alan down here. You have Alan. Let me finish. You have Alan accepted the loot to protect the loot. And you have Alan faction too, which is supported by the Asantis, which involve every meaningful Ashanti is supporting. It's true, supporting Alan because they feel that it is their turn. That Chims want to ditch them. They felt how they are feeling. He may deny it. They think that, okay, we gave you the chance. Alan was spoken to not to contest again. They did the second round, University of Ghana, blah, blah, a whole lot of. For me, that is bonkers because politics, at any point in time, you can take a decision and ditch people. Morality doesn't play so much when it comes to political decisions. So you have two dominant ethnic groups within the NPP who are sharply divided now. Sharply divided. So yours is going to be very acrimonious, and I pray it should be very, very acrimonious. I just pray that lives are not lost. Exactly. But I can tell you that I pray that it's going to be very, very acrimonious. There've been attacks. In Tamale we have seen attacks of Alan boys and others. There've been people who were appointed deputy ministers and they were sacked because they were seen or perceived to be supporting Alan cause. All those things are happening. So I pray that Allah deepens the divisions. Yes, inshallah, God. I pray that he deepens the divisions within the NPP and let you people be at each other's throat. Of course, not with knives. I pray that you don't kill them. But I pray that, and honestly, I can predict that it's going to be very acrimonious. And for me, that is good for the NDC and good for the people of this country because we can't afford to have a continuation of the mess we are experiencing today after the 2024 elections. So these are things that are going to happen. I know even in the North, the contest, the parliamentary candidates, it is sharply divided between Alan's candidate and Baumia's candidate. Sharply divided. That is across the country.
All the way down to the
So it's worrying, and I'm concerned because this democracy, which the NDC actually nurtured, the NDC actually nurtured the democracy we experience today. We gave birth to this democracy. In fact, we gave birth, nurtured the democracy. Look, Rawlings, and I participated in a lecture given by Professor Ali Mazuri, and I still remember when he said that Rawlings started a dictator and ended up a democrat. Yeah. And he said that, look, Rawlings could have decided not to democratize. He had control over the military, the security agencies, and he gave examples of other African countries where the leaders refused to let nothing happen. But Rawlings decided, look, let's democratize. We gave birth to this democracy. Anytime there are changes in our democratic processes, for positive changes, it happens when the NDC is in government. But when you people are in government, you have a tyrant who rules like a king and not as a politician, President Nanado. Everybody knows that he's a tyrant, a democratic dictator, and everything he does is to divide this country the more. I think that if he concentrates on dividing the MPP on the lines of Achim and Ashantis, that will be fine for you. But to attempt to divide this country as a state, a unitary state, for me, that is extremely worrying. So I pray that Allah deepens the divisions within you and let you be at each other, deal with each other the more, cause division, so that this country can be saved.
Right.
Is there anything to
Right. Hearty good morning to you, Councillor Abiada.
Good morning to you, bless. I can assure my brother, Arabic comrade, that we'll have a smooth, peaceful election.
Well,
election that reflects.
How many events they say?
We'll have elections that reflects the character of the NPP, of the UP tradition. We've been having contests since when?
Not to do
you understand? We've been having elections since when? Way back when Ni was a young man, a young patriot, a young UP man. We were having contests. You understand? We've had contests in the 50s. You understand? Yeah. You understand? Also, Nanado isn't a tyrant. As in, you may disagree with the mere fact that Nanado isn't a tyrant.
Be honest.
I'm being very honest. Anabu Mutala himself here has come and he's really criticized, attacked Nanado. I'm an NPP man. And where I've disagreed with Nadu, I've sat on your platform. Yeah. I've attacked Nadu.
That's why they haven't appointed you. That's why they have refused
nothing has
to give you any appointment.
But he has, as a president, one, is not as if I'm looking for an appointment. I'm a private legal practitioner.
Yes, we know.
I'm doing my private corner. I'm fine. I'm not looking for any appointment. Nadu has, I mean, he has the right to appoint whoever he.
So that's why he appointed 54 family members.
Jomama, and His Excellency Jomama, come appoint every NDC a person, and I don't buy the argument that NDC do not have talents. They have talents there.
No, but is there any argument?
I'm coming.
Is there any argument in the first place that we don't have talents?
Oh, the people make that argument.
It's you people, you see.
People, you see, people make that argument.
It's you people who make that argument.
They make that argument is made. I don't buy
it's
that.
You people.
I don't buy that argument because as in wisdom cannot be in the
head of one person.
So both parties have, like I always say, this country is blessed with a lot of talented people. What we need is a leader that can harness all those talents, you understand, for us to forge one strong nation. So NDC, like the NPP, has a lot of talented people, and yet Jomama will not be able to appoint all of them. It doesn't mean he's a tyrant. If Nadu will be a tyrant,
maybe appoint 54 family members.
If Nadu were to be a tyrant, I'm not sure we'll be here. We'll be locked in some dungeon somewhere.
I say he's a democratic tyrant.
Oh, he's not a tyrant. You see, you can disagree with him what you want. He's not a tyrant for that bit. Yeah, you understand. And also, my brother here said Alan is backed by that. Alan is backed by a cross-section of Ghanaians.
Particularly that.
In fact, Alan has a lot of support among our brothers from in Dagomba.
From the NDC.
No, our brothers in Dagomba. In Dagomba, Alan has so much support there. He went around, met the Yana. The Yana gave his blessings. Met every traditional head in.
Oh, I'm told Nigeria adopted Alan as his son.
Exactly.
And I said he adopted Bawumia as his son.
No, something he has adopted him. We all tell us something. You understand? But the place is that you see, Alan represents the kind of leader you need, a leader that has shown that he can unite the cross section of Ghanaians. You understand? Let me call it Omahan. He's shown that he can unify all Ghanaians, as in whether you're an Ashanti man, you're a Fanti man, you are my grandbrother like me, whether that born everywhere he went to before before today he's gone to tell the Ni Gamanche about his ambition, gotten his blessings. He went to Asante, he went to Yana, went to the Nigerians, across the length and breadth of this country. You understand? And most importantly, he's put across why he wants to be president of
the GTP.
You can see right. So give me the same time you give my brother. So for me, as like I always say, you may agree, you may disagree, but let us elevate our politics to issues where we discuss issues. Feel free to criticize each other. Feel free to interrogate the issues. At the end of the day, what we want is a stronger and better Ghana, and what a leader that can harness all of our talents. And I strongly believe that Alan represents that leadership. But most importantly, MPP, like we always do, we are going to have a very heated contest. But after the competition, there will be cooperation.
Right.
And they won't be sharply divided. God himself will ensure that for the good of this country, the MPP will be kept together like we've always stayed together after various contests since our inception.
Right.
And nothing bad is going to happen to us.
Right. Good morning, Don.
Good morning.
I trust you're doing okay.
By His grace.
And how is it do?
Oh, very good.
Very
good. We are keeping it quiet for now.
Right.
Yes.
Right. Let's start our conversation. As usual, we start with the African story, but these are the stories that we will be discussing. By the way, panic buying after Nigeria fuel subsidy confusion. This story is captured on page 5 of the Daily Graphic newspaper. Parliament declares Asin North seat vacant. By-election looms. Ghanaian Times. Bawumia picks NPP flag bearer forms. The Daily Guide newspaper, the front page. Swindled pensioner bondholders to resume picketing tomorrow. The Herald newspaper's front page has captured this story as well. We'll start with the very first one. 2 days ago was the inauguration ceremony of the president of Nigeria, Bola Tinubu. And of course, he made some announcement. He had actually, I understand it was actually part of his campaign promise that once he is able to become president, he's going to remove that subsidy on fuel. I understand that it has a lot of repercussions on the Nigerian economy. The fuel subsidy, it's so huge that if you look at that amount in particular, I mean, the effect on the Nigerian economy from that fuel subsidy alone is huge. So he's taken it off, and even when he didn't state the exact date that it will take effect, people had already thronged filling fuel stations to actually purchase fuel down. You understand? So that's the situation. But I don't know if you monitored the ceremony. It was pretty beautiful. I have my reservations about the man himself, about Bola Tinubu himself. I mean, from what I saw at the inaugural ceremony. But this is a man who has Nigeria at heart, as we've been made to believe, and going forward. And I don't know if you've heard the former president, what's his name?
Buhari.
I mean, there are some comments he's made and all of that. He said he believes he's left Nigeria better than he came to meet it in 2015. I've been asking questions about their security issues about the Nigerian economy. But what would the future look like for the newly sworn-in president, that is Bola Tinubu? I'll start with you, Comrade.
Well, first and foremost, let me congratulate President Tinubu for his victory and congratulate the Nigerian people for a successful inauguration. At least for now, the positive thing about it is that the president didn't plagiarize his speech. He avoided subjecting the people of Nigeria to an international ridicule. We saw what happened in 2017 when our incompetent president was elected. He didn't just plagiarize one American president, four, and many others. And I think that people are still digging deep. And it has been emerged that it was not only the president, even comedians were plagiarizing the speech delivered by the president. But that is just a lighter side of it. I didn't monitor the occasion. I listened to the speech delivered by the former president of Kenya, President Kenyatta. And it was outstandingly a befitting statement to be made, considering the circumstance and also the place. Nigeria and our good friends in Nigeria have said that Nigeria, they vaunted that Nigeria is the giant of Africa. And Ghana and Nigeria, I can describe us as cousins. Many people do not understand the historical relationship that exists between Nigerians and many tribes in Ghana. The Gans are believed to have come from Nigeria, right?
Yes.
And the Gumbes, we are partly from Nigeria. The Tuhaji, who I strongly believe was a Fulani man, because Tuhaji means red hunter, and who came from Chad, and Chadians are Fulanis. And then he moved to Zamfara in northern Nigeria, and there is a place called Gombe, something that the Gombes had done Gombe, that's sons or children of Gombe. So if you look at the historical antecedents, how they moved, migrated, from there, I believe there would have been a lot of assimilations. And linguistically, I think that it has taken centuries where they came to settle in Pusiga, founded the Mole, the Gbon Kingdom, you know, Bewa as their great-grandfather. So we have some relationship. If you want to observe how marriages are done among them, and if you see how marriages are done among the Fulani people in the houses, I don't mean Islamic marriage, a typical Dabong traditional marriage is the same thing. And historians will tell you that one of the surest ways you can identify the relationship historically between tribes or among ethnic groups is, one, their social gatherings, how they perform their festivals, the marriages, funerals, and it's just the same. So we have that, and I believe that many other ethnic groups in Ghana would have had that relationship. Two, Ghana and Nigeria, Ghanaians will feel very comfortable staying in Nigeria than any other country within the West Africa sub-region. If for nothing at all, we are enveloped by French-speaking countries. And language itself is a barrier. So Ghanaians will feel very comfortable in Nigeria than in Togo, than in Burkina, than in Ivory Coast, just as Nigerians will feel very comfortable in Ghana. We have had our bitter past. We've had the Aliens Compliance Order, which was perpetrated by his tradition, and Nana Addo, the current president, is a beneficiary of that Aliens Compliance Order. The house he lives in Nima, that house was not built by his parents. The houses there, and if you take where Mount Crest is, they were houses that were owned by the so-called aliens. They confiscated them and sold them to themselves. So he's a beneficiary of the Aliens Compliance Order. Now you've had several people who were forced out of this country. Their businesses were shuttered because of that unreasonable law called Aliens Compliance Order. Nigeria retaliated, if you like, in the 80s when they said Ghana must go. For me, it was a very silly retaliation, if indeed that was the purpose. But in all this, whether the Ghana must go and the Aliens Compliance Order, they always use economic reasons as a justification for having people to leave. The Aliens Compliance Order didn't just target Nigerians. But why is it that the majority of the people who left this country, the non-citizens or the aliens, were Nigerian? Because the Nigerians feel comfortable to. May God forbid, if there is a problem in Ghana, many Ghanaians would want to move from Ghana. We pray we don't experience any turmoil or conflict. What we have all experienced, these two countries, have been economic turmoil, where our economy, the Nigerian economy wasn't doing well. There was a boom in the Ghanaian economy. So Nigerians moved in. And when our economy was also not doing well, Ghanaians felt comfortable to be in Nigeria. So let's begin to understand that. There are major ethnic groups in Ghana who are originally from Nigeria. The Hausas, the Yorubas. Initially, the Igbos were not coming to Ghana until recent times. Those who were in Ghana were the Hausas, and they came through religion, trade expedition. But Islam was introduced in many West African countries, including Ghana, through Usman Udam Fodio, who was from northern Nigeria. So they came through trade expedition, and then he introduced the religion in this part of the country. Now you have, from there, the Yorubas who came as businessmen. I'll tell you a story. My dad was a businessman. My dad had stores in the Tamale market before it was bent. And my dad wrote on his store, Alhaji Ibrahim Dagumba. Many people thought my dad was a Yoruba man, because those he was doing, his business and trade with were Yorubas from Nigeria. And my senior sister was even given to a Yoruba man to marry. And they were in Ikija, they have a son called Lati. So there's that relationship. So let's get this very clear. So it is always, and it must be, a concern of the people of this country to ensure that Nigeria democratizes, to ensure that there is peace in Nigeria. Because if there is no peace in Nigeria, and there's going to be exodus of Nigerians, the only destination within the West African sub-region, predictably, is Ghana. Could you imagine the entire people in Lagos coming to Ghana, over 20 million people, will not be able to sustain it? May God forbid, if there is a problem in Ghana, and Ghanaians would have to exodus from Ghana to other, the predicted destination would be in Nigeria. So that is why the peace, stability of these countries are important. Sports is another factor. Nigerians can't fathom. They are bigger than us, they have people than us, they have human resource than us. They can't understand why we always take the lead. And I know my Nigerian friends watching will not be happy. We got independence 3 years before Nigeria. At least our jollof is better than that of the Nigeria jollof. But that is the lighter side of it. We have a lot in common. We stand to benefit a lot if we are united than we are divided. And so I would urge, there have been a lot of concerns. Oh, there's insecurity in Ghana. It's as a result of Nigerians. And I remember when I was the Deputy Minister for Trade, I had an outstanding relationship with the Nigerian businessmen in Ghana, through the Nigerian High Commissioner at that time and their Nigerian businessmen. And Buta members were at a point very angry. They felt that we needed to implement the laws which we attempted to do, but sometimes you go beyond just the laws. You look at the diplomatic relationship, you look at the historical, cultural, factors that binds us together. So if you want to take any action, you look beyond the laws. So Nigeria, stability, democracy is of tremendous importance to us as Ghanaians. Now the way forward, they had elections. The elections were not as rosy and as clean as anybody. There were a lot of issues. And I get the sense that is being contested still in court.
Yeah.
You know, what is significant on that day was the statement delivered by the former president of Kenya, calling on Nigeria. And I tell Nigerians that Nigeria, yes, is a giant of Africa. Unfortunately, it's a sleeping giant. And a giant who is sleeping is as weak as an ant. So I think that if Nigeria wakes up from this deep, long slumber, many African countries will wake up. Nigeria has the capacity to produce food to feed the entire West African sub-region. If you know certain parts of Nigeria, northern part of the northeast, the rains, Nigeria has the capacity to produce meat to feed not only West Africa, the entire continent of Africa. But it seems to me that the focus is on the oil. The only way Nigeria can do that is when they begin to respect democratic principles and governance. When they begin to understand that this potential they have, they must unearth that. So if that sleeping giant wakes up, many African countries, including Ghana, will wake up. We benefit a lot from Nigeria, just as Nigeria benefit from us. Education. Our educational institutions are making a lot of money because of these foreign students. The majority of the foreign students in Ghana are from Nigeria, and they pay huge sums of money. Yeah. Now, the reason why a lot of Nigerians will come here is, one, the quality of our education, and two, peace and stability. Certain parts of Nigeria, your kids are in school, you are worried. Security is a major problem in Nigeria. And if they're able to find solutions to it, Nigerian universities are also very good universities. They are able to eschew corruption. That is not to say that we don't have, at least we have the biggest corrupt leader in Africa, in Ghana, president who lives within the four walls of the Flagstaff House. So corruption is as endemic in Nigeria as it is in what? In Ghana. But we need to have these things that we share from each other. And Nigeria would look at some of the examples. Our democracy has become very resilient, at least so far. We have practiced this democracy over 30 years now, and we can say that it's a bit resilient. And that is why we should be concerned about certain actions taken by President Nana Addo and the Electoral Commission, because they are virtually going to thwart all the efforts made by the previous leaders to ensure that there is stability. Because if there's no stability in Ghana, there's no stability in Nigeria, I don't know where we can go as a people. I'll conclude with a statement made by the former President Buhari, when he said that they asked him what he would do, and then he said he was going to go and concentrate on his cattle and then his sheep, and said that it is easy to manage the cattle and the sheep than managing Nigerians. So I said, okay, Buhari has presented us with another funny stroke that we can use on our brothers from Nigeria. But on a more serious note, there is so much between us. There is so much between Ghanaians and the Nigerian people, despite sometimes our divisions when it comes to sports, when it comes to jollof, when it comes to music. I mean, clearly the Nigerian musicians are outstanding. Yeah. I have a problem with a musician like Sarkodie, and my problem is that the guy is so talented. I don't know why he limits all his singing in Twi. Of course, Twi, you target a particular market, because I believe that he's as good as any of the musicians in Nigeria if he ventures into singing in a language, even if it is pidgin, and he speaks an excellent English. So if he ventures into that, he would get the international attention. Look at the Sharif, Black Sharif. Black Sharif is getting, because he largely sings in a language that resonates. But if he sings in a local language, it is only limited to Ghanaians in Ghana and Ghanaians in the diaspora. Not all Ghanaians, those who have an appreciation of the language. So I think that we stand to learn a lot. And this collaboration between Nigerian musicians and Ghanaian musicians helps. The movie industry is one. I don't watch those movies, actually, the local movies, because they will tell you that if you are not passing exams, your auntie or someone is bewitching you. So it will make you not even learn to understand that you can pass exams if you learn and pray. But they think that prayer comes first. No. Work comes first before prayer. Allah says that work and pray. Allah didn't say pray and work. Work and pray. So if the reason why I don't encourage my kids to watch such. Yeah. Because they watch, you are not doing well in school, it's your auntie or your stepmother or your something is doing that. So for me, but we stand to learn a lot. So the deepening of collaboration between us and the movie industry, in the music industry, even in politics, I think that is something that will be good for us. So I wish the people of Nigeria very well, and I hope that taking into consideration the background of Tinubu, who had been a business mogul more or less, I think that he'll be able to. One thing he said about the subsidy of fuel prices, in as much as he wants to take such actions, he should try and fix the energy crisis in Nigeria. Electricity. Nigerians don't enjoy electricity. And sometimes I wonder, Nigeria has the capacity to purchase power plants just like we did, and for which reason the state is now reaping a lot of benefit. I put a question to the Minister of Finance, how much we generate from the excess capacity. As a result of the excess capacity, we supply energy to sell energy to our neighbors. And the Minister of Finance said on the floor that Ghana was making over $140 million every year as a result of selling power to our neighbors, thanks to what visionary, action taken by President Mahama. Something they condemned, we are now making. And the minister said it, answered my question on the floor of Parliament, over $140 million every year as a result of the so-called excess capacity. Nigeria has the capacity to install such plants, to be able to provide. The only reason, and having interactions with Nigerians, why the state is unwilling to do that is that there's a cartel of those who are making money in Nigeria from the sales of these generators. I mean, for me, that tells you the mindset of many Africans. If they are able to solve that, once you have adequate capacity and energy, it helps grow the economy. Industrialization become, a success. But if you don't have, electricity, people, even domestic use, they would have to use generators. I think that those things do not augur well. So Nigeria, yes, we agree, you are you are giants of Africa, but we are sleeping. Wake up, and once you wake up, all your cousins and your kid brothers and sisters would wake up. Until such a time, would have a lot of problems.
Right, thank you very much, Comrade Murtala Mohammed. Let me come to you, Councillor Abiadamba.
I think, apart from the few propaganda, apart from the few propaganda,
I know you're good.
Comrade, I don't know why. What's it called? My brothers and then you see whether they all have PhD in propaganda.
We learned it from you.
No, we learned propaganda. But an excellent expose on why there's a need for Ghana and Nigeria to collaborate. A fantastic delivery about there being more things that you unite Ghana and Nigeria as against separate. And I'm surprised he didn't add that he himself is named Murtala. You should order that.
No, you see, the name is an Arabic name. But it's supposed to be Murtada.
Okay.
It's one of the names of the Holy Prophet.
Yeah.
But Nigerians say Murtala. I remember when I was asked to Secretary General, and we went to Ilmenau. That is eastern part of Germany. That was in 2007. So, with my marks.
Yeah.
Nigerian tribes, they also have this one. So when I introduced, and I met some Nigerian student leaders, I said, my name is Ibrahim Murtala Muhammad. So no, you are a guy. They use a word, Omogana, they said something. No, Nigeria, I'm a Nigerian. I did everything, they said no. With Murtala and with this marks. And so that is also the historical relationship. The Gumbes have this marks. If you go to Nigeria, they have that because of that historical linkage that we have had. So that name, many people, Murtala Muhammad.
And that was former head of state.
Yes, unfortunately. Who was murdered actually.
Sadly murdered.
Yes.
Like he really said, there's more that unites us as people. And so talking about what unites Ghana and Nigeria, I think we should, looking beyond that, we should even look within ourselves. It's sad that for a country like Ghana and Nigeria and a lot of African countries, that has a lot of potential, so much potential. Like I said, I'm not one of those people who buy into that vile propaganda that some of us are intelligent, some people are not. No, we are all very smart. It's about harnessing the various what's called talents to forge a nation. You understand? And I think one of the things that is holding us back, Nigeria, Ghana, DR Congo, is the ills of tribalism also. Because you see, when my brother was talking about the fact that our brothers, as the Ghanaians are from Ife, the Dagomes, even in Ghana here, I'm an Ashanti man, and you go to Kumasi, the heart of Kumasi, there's an area called Bantama, which is actually Dagomba Bantama, which is actually which is actually a Dagomba when you wonder heart of Kumasi, why would what's called? You will go to Menchia, and Menchia is surrounded by Musizungu, and because
I'm not cutting it short. There was a Professor Ilyasu, who was at the Political Science Department of University of Ghana. He challenged the historical writings of Professor Dubois. When Professor Dubois had written that the Gumbes were defeated by Assantis in 1770, Professor Ilyasu challenged it and said that the Gumbes and Assantis never fought. They had what he described as economic symbiosis. And he said that in history, places, events took place are more important than dates. Because with places they took place, you can do archaeological discoveries to ascertain. So he said that if the Gumbes were defeated by Assantis in 1770, where was the battle fought?
Exactly.
So which was answered. He said there was economic symbiosis. So in fact, I remember when we had this Dagban crisis and Asante was asked to mediate, there were a lot of the Gumbes who didn't understand. And I took time on a radio to Tamale to let people understand that there wasn't anybody perfectly suited to mediate and find solution. Because the Gumbes' senior brother is the Nigerian. So if the Gumbes have a problem, they go to the Nigerian. But under that prevailing circumstances, it was going to be seen as something that will create more problems if the Nigerian, because of the closeness. So the only person who was supposed properly fit to do that was Asante, because of that historical relationship that exists between the Gumbes and Asante. So it was the perfect, and thank God, the Asante was able to mediate and ensure that there is lasting peace. If you go to Dagbang, the warriors in Dagbang, they don't use the Gumba names. They use Kojo. They use, because at a point in time, there was one Dagbang king or chief who wanted to come and to fight armed with his brother. So he sought the assistance of warriors from the Asante kingdom, and they were sent. So after the fight against his own brother, they remained. And now the Dauri and the Tumpani, one belongs to the Dagbang. We are now using them. Assantis are now using. One belongs to Assantis. The Gumbes are now using. So there is so much. You can say that the Gumbes and Assantis are causing so much, and I believe several ethnic groups. So I think history. We need to imbibe that in our social studies.
No, it's critical. It's critical.
People must understand how far we have come.
It's critical because you see, and as I always say, because no matter how fantastic a leader has ideas, if he's unable to mobilize us together to follow the idea, then he'll fail. And one of the things that works against the ability to mobilize us together is tribalism. And I think it's held us back. It's held not just Ghana. You go to Nigeria and the tribalism there is phenomenal. I think one of the biggest challenges Tinubu is going to face is how to bring them together. Because if you follow their elections, you have a situation where Obi had the Igbos, you understand, Tinubu. What we need right now is let's forget about what happened in the past. People arguments have been made when the white man was dividing us. Right now we have a nation, irrespective of how the divisions went. We forged a nation, and our focus should be how do we bring a seamless flow or synergy amongst these various tribes to then really benefit from our nationhood. You get a picture. And for me, I think that when you go deep into history, you realize that things that unite us. And so recently, the Otunfo went to what's called the Water region, Hobochuchu. And from the narration, it turned out that the so-called rivalry between Ashantis and has been a creation of really of politicians. You understand? And that if there's anything, there's real, as in there are so many reasons why the Ashantis and the West can be close. So my take from what my brother here said, from what is happening in Nigeria, from what about the fact that yes, Nigeria is a sleeping giant, but Nigeria is not just the only sleeping giant in Africa. I always mention DR Congo, and that potentially powerful nation. If you have a Nigeria functioning, you have DR Congo functioning. Africa can have the real Africa renaissance that we need. You understand? You have Pan-African TV. It's critical that Nigeria rouses from its slumber. Because I agree, they are sleeping. See, when you take Nigeria, when you take the USA, how USA developed, what USA had, as in the United, well, when they moved and then they forged their country, they had a country that had a lot of resources. They had a big market. They had a very innovative country. And the leaders in USA, the leaders, Alexander Hamilton, George Washington, deliberately forged an economic strategy that protected infant American industry. Understand? They covered them until they grew, and then so that we have the America that we have today. I think Nigeria has similar potential. Canada is strong because USA is strong. Mexico is strong because USA is strong. When Nigeria is strong, Ghana will be stronger. You understand? And Nigeria has everything. They have the human resources, very talented people. They have the natural resources. All they need is leadership. Understand? Somebody who can bring the various diverse groups. Because see, diversity isn't a weakness. Diversity is always a strength. Diversity is never a weakness. That's why my personal view is to believe in real democracy. As in real democracy, where people should be free to speak their different minds. You understand? I always argue with me here. It doesn't mean that what he's saying is wrong per se. It's about we having different opinions. But the more we argue, the more we will disagree. Both of our views will be sharpened. And then when we find a leader that can bring all these views together, then we can have the real opportunity of succeeding as a people. And I think that's where Africa has been lacking. We focus too much on the things that divide us. I've had the privilege of going to Tamale a lot of the time. I've been to the course there, and it's one of the places I feel very comfortable with. Fantastic people. Yeah, you understand? Fantastic human beings. And I believe that if you should go throughout Ghana, you realize that there are a lot of nice, great people in this country. The fact that we are from diverse backgrounds shouldn't be a weakness. You understand? Now, why does a diverse background have a potential of being a weakness? It boils down to sometimes lack of respect. You understand? It is important that we respect ourselves as human beings. We respect the fact that we have diverse views. We respect the fact that at the end of the day, that diversity in views, in how things should be done, if that energy is channeled well, then we can have the best opportunity of creating the best environment for ourselves. So with Nigeria, with the step that Tinubu has taken about the subsidies and all, for me, what I'll say, and the same thing I'll say here, that it's important that government leaders find a way of channeling resources to build industries, to protect these industries. When we build the industries, when we've built the economy well, then when you are taking away subsidies, because the only reason why we think we ought to be subsidizing some of these is because most of us don't have the economic power to be able to afford some of these basic things. But I think the fundamental is in building an economy where people can make the best out of their individual talents, and that means that government should deliberately support innovation, deliberately support industry. And when I say industry here, I don't mean factories per se. So whether it's the music industry, whether it's the whatever industry, service, production, you understand, deliberately protect them. And then when these economies are good, when you've done that and the economies are good, then when you are taking away the subsidies, you understand, you'd have first of all built the people, you have built the economy, then nobody will be thinking about the subsidy. And the reason why sometimes you're unable to do that is some of these petty tribalism, and when let's say when an Igbo man becomes president, he thinks he must help his Igbo brothers, as in the fact that we fail to recognize that we are forging a nation, we are forging Ghana, and so in that Ghana, Mutala here for me, he's a Dagon, he always been a Dagomba, he's a Ghanaian. When I see Mutala, I see a Ghanaian brother, and not a Dagomba man. When I see me, an African. Yes, when I see me, I see an African, a Ghanaian, not a Ghana man. Then once we're able to recognize that we're all one people, that we are forging a nation with one purpose, one objective, and that objective is simply a better Ghana, then would have built that foundation. would have built a foundation where we can then build that sort of structure that would lead to a better Ghana for all of us. That should be the purpose why we do politics, to bring people together, to forge one nation.
Right. Thank you so much. I'll pick the thoughts of Michael Niyaboyanan.
Well. Nigeria subsidies. Well, I share in the historical lectures we've had from our senior brother, Honorable Mutala. I think it was perfectly situated. We, the Gans, also have our history with Nigeria, and it's a strong one. In fact, it is believed that the entire La people are Nigerians. And aside that, if you come to Dododiodo, where we call Kaole, the beginning of all Zongo started from this place, and it was basically Nigerians who had, through trade, had established themselves there. And up to today, they keep their ties with Nigeria. They still go back home, but they are Ghanaians. These are people who today have Ghana names because of intermarriages and all that. So it is something that I believe that we should recognize that even within our differences, trade, commercialization will always bring us closer together. And that is the challenge I think that Africa has, and especially when it comes to Ghana, Nigeria. For many centuries, we have not been able to understand money. Africa's challenge is not about education and we not knowing what to do or what not to do. Africa's biggest challenge is that we have never been able to create sound money. That is our biggest challenge. I realize the call on Nigeria sleeping to wake up. Well, it is because they are big. That is why we are seeing them sleeping. But Ghana, of course, is also sleeping the same way. And we all need to wake up. Now, I really admire what Tinubu, the president of Nigeria, did on such an occasion. I thought that such an occasion, like it was said, what happened in Ghana was that somebody was just, copying. I don't want to use the other word. Was copying what other presidents have said on their inauguration or swearing in. But this is a man who probably have seen it all in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Being a governor for many years and being a chairman of a party, he has seen it all, and I think that he has started on the right footing. Nigeria subsidized fuel to the tune of $9.3 billion a year. This year alone, by June, they would have spent over $3.3 billion on fuel subsidies. Yet these are largely people who do not have constant power. And such monies or investments could have been put at appropriate places, like providing power or providing a lot of these generators to, instead of private people owning it, for the state to own and manage it. Now, this is going to affect a lot of things around Nigeria. It's going to affect production because clearly production costs will go up. But what it's going to do is also to spread the risk across board for everybody. This is something most presidents have not been able to deal with in Nigeria. And for him to say this at his inauguration means a lot that, look, I'm prepared to do what it takes to bring Nigeria up from its sleep. Like you rightly said, in terms of the person himself, and some of the things we watch kind of suggest that is a bit not aware of his surroundings and all that. But I believe that the statement he made was actually coming from him. And for me, that is what I felt a bit proud about. I want to see how they manage this and steer it through, because for me, I think it is going to save or create a lot of space in the Nigerian fiscal policy and allow them to use the money to do things that will bring real productivity to them as a country. One of the things that Nigeria have been sleeping on, yes, they are the biggest market and all that, but one of the things they have been sleeping on is to allow themselves to be used as the big brothers within the West African sub-region. They have not allowed themselves to be used because of their democratic issues that they do have, and issues with security and all that. It's not allowing all of us to actually fall on them as the big brothers. And I think it is about time that they really entrench their democratical tendencies for us to have that assurance in them. I think Nigeria could start the economic migration of the West African sub-region if they should take up certain things immediately. Look, like rightly it was said, meat. What else? They have many resources. Nigeria could grow a lot of palm. Now, Africa is depending on Malaysia and Indonesia for about 4.4 trillion worth of palm oil, which, if Ghana and Nigeria alone should come together, can supply the entire Africa with this. Now, what do we see? I mean, most of the places that can grow these palm are places that we have small security issues that we have not been able to solve, and therefore has become bigger issues upon our head. And so, for me, I think he has started on the right footing, and I pray that he continues in that direction, because that is the surest way we could all get out of it. This is a nation that is producing oil, and that is why they sometimes feel obliged to subsidize the fuel for
very large quantities.
Exactly, their people. But it has to stop somewhere, and Nigerians must all agree to actually support this move to make it a success. But what I pray does not happen is that after making these savings, it should not be used to build a cathedral. It should be used the investment should be put
to proper use.
You know, so that this is an advice. This is not propaganda.
Free advice for that matter.
Yes, because I believe that I know one state in Nigeria that wants to go 100% renewable energy. And it is a good direction. But first and foremost, you must have a strong base in terms of the thermal energy before proceeding to do this. And I believe that when things are done right in Nigeria, it could be the biggest market, and it could be the beginning of industrializing the West African sub-region. And I will urge the current president or the latest president of Nigeria to continue in this state and make sure that they bring fiscal consolidation, true fiscal consolidation to Nigeria. We know what he did with the Lagos state, and we pray that he is able to do that with Nigeria. It will really help Ghana. We would be having an access to a market that is growing so fast, and they buy a lot of stuff from here, as much as we also buy a lot of stuff from them. I think there is going to be a mutual benefit between the two nations if we do things right. It is going to benefit us more than any of the Francophone countries around us. And that is why we should all pray for Nigeria and Tinubu to continue in this step.
Right, thank you so much.
30 seconds. I will urge Nigerians who are watching, they can learn aside politics from us. They can learn how to prepare proper jollof from us. They can learn how to play football from us. And what is significant, and for me, and I mean this, religious tolerance.
Yeah.
If Nigeria is able to understand or learn from Ghana why we tolerate each other as a people, regardless of religious differences, Nigeria will be a better place. In fact, largely the insecurity is occasioned because of religious, intolerance. So I think that our good friends in Nigeria can learn that from us, how to prepare proper jollof, how to play football, how to do politics of tolerance, and most important, religious tolerance.
Right, thank you so much. Our next topic,
I know. By now my DM is
our next topic is a very interesting one. Parliament declares Asin North seat vacant. And I'm going to straight away ask Honorable Murtala Mohammed his thoughts on the court's verdict. Albeit, although we need to be careful because there's also a criminal suit that's been filed against him. But then the NDC has not shied away from the fact that they are still going to present Chachi Quayson should there be a by-election and ostensibly there would be, because Parliament has declared the Asin North seat vacant. The NPP though, already some big wigs of the party have already thronged Asin North to campaign. They want to add that seat to the 137 that they already have in Parliament. What are your thoughts?
Well, it would be suicidal if the NDC thinks of changing the candidate. For me, he's our best bet, and I have no doubt in mind that he's going to win the seat again for us, and that would have confirmed the position we have had, that this prosecution of him and ensuring that he leaves Parliament is much ado about nothing. The NPP, if you listen to them, they give this vile threat that the man is being prosecuted for criminal offenses. We are very convinced that he would come out clean. We are very convinced that there is nothing much to it than the desperate attempt of this government to ensure that they have some leverage as far as the numbers in Parliament, is concerned. I would love to speak to the people of Asin North directly. And what I'll tell you, the good people of Asin North, is that this government hates you. The NPP government hates you. They would come to construct roads. They will come with money to buy your consciences. Let them understand that you are proud people, you are very smart people. And I say this because they denied you representation for almost a year or more.
Yeah.
They denied you representation. Your member of parliament whom you elected in the 2020 elections was sent to court by this government, saying that he was not qualified to represent you. You were convinced that he was more than the word qualified, for which reason you voted him. If they loved you so much, they wouldn't have done what they did. The man was still the member of parliament, yet he could not come to parliament to sit for your interests. He was still the member of parliament. He was denied the opportunity to advocate for that which is good for old people in Asin North, for young men, young women, babies, kids, your interests, your rules, your water. He could not do that, not because he didn't want to do that. He desperately wanted to do that. But he was denied the opportunity of doing that. And it was Nanado and the NPP who deliberately did what they did. Today, they want to spend the state resources to conduct an elections in which the NDC certainly will be fielding Honorable Quayson. Show the MPP that you are proud people. Show them that you are very smart people. Show them that you have not forgiven them for that denial of your interest, that denial of representation. That is what I have for the people of Asin North. I mean, this government is so wicked. And it is not only Asin North. Sal is another example. And they did so because of the hanged nature of Parliament. They didn't care whether people were dying in Asin North. They didn't care whether their roads were constructed. They didn't care whether their interest was being set in Parliament. What they cared about was getting the numbers to advance their parochial and partisan interests. That was what President Nanado and the MPP did. I filed questions in Parliament. Several of our colleagues filed questions for and on behalf of the constituencies we represented. And some of the questions we filed, answers were provided for our constituents. Some of the questions we filed, attentions were given to the reasons for which those questions were filed. The people of Asin North had challenges like any other constituencies, but nobody was there to file those questions for them. Nobody was there to represent their interests. And the person they elected to do that was denied the opportunity to do so. Only for them to start rushing to come to construct roads, to come to give you money, because that is what they are good at. They would construct the roads even in the night, midnight, they will still be constructing roads. At least you have an opportunity to send a message, not just to the MPP, but the political elite, that the Ghanaian citizens cannot be taken for a ride, and it must begin from Asin North.
Right. Thank you so much. That was pretty straightforward. Let me come to you, Don.
Well, I think it is clear what Jackie Quayson went through was as a result of a government in power wanting to control or have control over Parliament. It means that they had failed to actually build consensus within Parliament, or did not even want to attempt building consensus in Parliament with the hanged Parliament. And therefore, they had to go on that tangent of making sure that they use the law to get him out. I believe that law, the basics of law should be common sense. At one point, we are told that we need to have the MP on his seat and perform his duties until the court decides otherwise, so that the people will have a representation. At that same court today, we are told that an MP can be injuncted and be prevented from doing his work, and it was justified by the same law. That is why I have said here that for me, one of the things I don't believe in, and I will always avoid, is going to court, because I don't believe in law. Especially in Ghana, where it seems now that there is no common sense backing our law. The pronouncements of our courts have become so confusing rather than bringing clarity to us. Of course, he has suffered it, his people have suffered it. And trust me, the people of Assin will send a strong signal to this government that yes, they were the ones who voted for Honorable Quayson. And they will do it again. And this time, the margins will even open up.
Inshallah.
Because this is pure evil. Nothing but evil. Is the president telling us, is this administration telling us that assuming the NDC side had majority, they wouldn't find a way, a clear majority, they wouldn't find a way to work with Parliament. Is the president saying that he doesn't have the capacity and the capability to do that? I think it is clear. We can see the results of his administration. It has been incompetence, non-performing, uneducative, and ignorance. These four things characterize President Akufo-Addo's governance of this nation. And we have seen that it is not just about our courts. They have moved everywhere. It has to take the National Security Minister or Coordinator, Mr. Kandapa, to tell the Supreme Court judges that it is becoming worrying and a security threat, the unanimous decisions we are having. And just after that, we had a decision 3-4. You can imagine where we are going with our democracy. Look, the only thing holding us together is the 1992 Constitution. But I don't think that we should be poking Ghanaians to that level. It is, for me, not safe to do. And I believe that this is the first time we will have the opportunity to actually correct the wrong that has been done to Honorable Jackie Quayson. And this will be done by the people. The preamble of our Constitution clearly states that the people, we are the ones who brought that Constitution to life. We gave it life. And thank God it has gotten back to the people to decide this election. And they will decide it rightly.
All right.
But trust me, this one, it will not be like what happened Kumeu. This one, we are all going. If they want it to be a battlefield, it will be a battlefield. Whatever they will bring, we will bring. We are all going. We are preparing and we are all going there. Because you see, we cannot allow one person to destroy our democracy from the executive point and again destroy our democracy from the legislature point and again from the judiciary. Parliament under this president has been weaker. Governance from this president has been weaker. And clearly, our judiciary, we can see our way clear. And I'm sure my brother, being a lawyer, is even worried about some of the pronouncements they make.
You are worried.
I'm not worried. Because it is only at this point, under this government, that I am being told that my birth cert, that indicates that my parents are Ghanaians and therefore I am a Ghanaian. That is the first primary document you can obtain at birth. We are being told it's inferior to a superstructure called a passport that needs the birth cert to be in existence. This is the first time. A judge is struggling to tell us why. And you see, watch the Supreme Court nominees of America being actually vetted. And watch what recently happened. It's a pity. I cry for this country, where we are going. Because, look, this is somebody, a Supreme Court judge who was said to be a Democrat, who actually sat in front of a vetting panel and disagreed with a democratic decision that has been put out there. He was bold to say that, as for this, I will not go for it. And then a sharp contrast in Ghana, you can see one that is being vetted, that was really making sure that everything she says there aligns with what the government is thinking. And for me, I think that is too low. If we really want to develop this democracy, I think that is too low.
Right.
But as for Jackie Quayson, he is coming back to Parliament. And they can continue the criminal action. But the votes that will come will embarrass all of them.
Right. Right. Thank you so much. Council.
Yeah, so even before that, I disagree vehemently with the position of my two brothers here in attempting to rope the president and the government in this Jackie Quayson issue. And this is my reason. So my brother here rightly said that the Constitution says that we, the people of Ghana, have adopted unto ourselves the Constitution. And when you go into the Constitution, essentially what it does is that it creates institutions, gives institutions powers. You get it. So we, the people of Ghana, decided that before you can even contest for Parliament, there are certain things that certain requirements that you must meet. And one of them was that you shouldn't hold allegiance to another country. Now, the Jackie Quayson case began because one of the people from the constituency brought an action challenging Jackie Quayson's legitimacy or right to contest on the basis that he held allegiance to another country. The matter rightly went to the institution that the Constitution prescribed that when such disputes arise, they must handle it. You please let me do the Jackie Quayson case. It went to the right institution. Are you trying to say that the president was the one who sat on that issue, or did he influence the judiciary? Now the matter went to court. Now the matter turned on whether or not on the time when the qualification for Parliament should be made, should be made at the time when the nominations have been opened, or should it be made when elections are actually done. Now, when you go to the same Constitution, Article 11 of the Constitution, when they're stating the laws of Ghana, so the Constitution is one of the laws of Ghana, the Acts of Parliament, but also common law. And the common law includes decision of the court plus a custom. Now, we are a common law practicing judicial tradition. And so you know that decisions of the Supreme Court are binding. You understand? On the concept of precedent. You all know that in the Zanato Ajman Rollins case versus the NDC, as in when she was, the Supreme Court made it clear that when it came to issues of qualifications, the time frame or the period under consideration is when nominations have been filed, so that everything that happened in the Quayson case was something that you could have predicted. You didn't need a prophet. It's something that you could have predicted. And so, yes, you can disagree with the decision. I don't mind you disagreeing. But the point is that the institutions that we, the people ourselves, we put in place to govern us. Wait, the president, why do you bring the president in this matter when the president has not done anything to interfere with the work of the judiciary? We, the people of Ghana, all of us, my brother here, myself, honorable comrade, you yourself, we brought into being the Constitution. And we said clearly that if you hold allegiance to another state, you won't be qualified to be MP. And it's not as if Jackie Quayson is the first issue. It's the first person or the first instance where we've been faced with this issue. what's it called? Is it Honorable Sakande or whatever? A similar issue happened.
There are two different issues.
No, I'm talking about the fact that somebody challenging the issue of an MP being in office and he being challenged. Yeah, you understand? I don't think we've created a system where we have the right to challenge. We have the right to challenge. So it has nothing to do with the president. I think it is an interest, all of us as politicians, that we strengthen our institutions. We strengthen the judiciary, and sometimes some of these are comments. They don't help those institutions, like how we've been attacking the EC. We can do it without weakening those institutions. Because immediately we create a system where people do not trust in the neutrality or in the ability of the judiciary to give justice, then we will have an issue. If my brother here says he does not believe in the law, it is a problem. It is a problem. I'm not saying the law is I'm not saying the law is perfect. You understand? The law is not perfect, and that's why the law is dynamic. You see, we have a problem if the law cannot change. It's static. And that's why in our constitution we've created a system where we can do self-review. That's why we have appellate jurisdiction, we have review jurisdiction, we have supervisory jurisdiction, because we recognize that because these institutions are institutions that have been created by human beings, that they cannot be perfect. But we need that institution necessarily. We need the system that we've created for ourselves, so that we have the best chance of developing as the people. And so then, if that is the case, then it is our interest that in so far as we can compete. Understand? I don't have an issue. So as I disagree, I don't agree with he trying to make a pitch for their votes. That one, I don't have an issue with it, because he has a right to pitch. But I have an issue with us trying to, first of all, unfortunately and unfairly, and on the pain of saying I'm even being dishonest, to rope in the president. Oh, what has the president played in this Quayson case? Is there a case that the
Attorney General comments?
Oh, no, Attorney
General's comments.
Is it the president?
As clearly that the president had so much interest.
The president have interest, like all of us have interest. But the president, did he interfere in the institution that we created to deal with this matter?
I don't think that will be in the open.
No, but you have an interest in Judge Quayson. All citizens of this country.
You don't tell me that.
But
the president really interfered.
So that you don't have any evidence, and that's what I'm saying, that because we want these institutions to work, when you do not have evidence,
but you guys have consequential evidence.
No, the fact that I don't do we are politicians. We want the system to work, and because we want the system to work, we want the system to work. We want the system to work. It's not perfect, but we want the system to work. And that's what I'm saying. I don't have an issue with you pitching for votes. After all, like I said, I'm a Democrat. I may not disagree with what you say, but that doesn't mean that I disrespect what you are saying. So what I'm saying, I don't have an issue if you are pitching for their votes. That is your right. Yes, and I also don't, and I always say this, I'm not one of those people who also think that, let's say the NDC, so I'm also one of those people who say that, let's say the NDC or my opponents, I'm not one of those who believe that my opponents should be destroyed. No, I don't hold that view. Because I believe that for Ghana to work, we need alternative views. You understand? So for me, I don't believe in making other political parties stronger. Because I think there was a use in being the sole party in power in a very weak state.
Are you in power or you're in a position, you as a president?
Personally, I'm a Ghanaian. I'm not in power. Personally, I'm not part of government.
There is an opposition in power.
Personally, I'm not in government. You understand? But the point I'm trying to make is that, for me, my interest is in us building, because I believe that we have so many talented people in this country. When we build a strong nation, you understand? All of us, people that then they should have voted by and all those things. We will not happy because we are okay. You understand? Then we can have the best chance of building a nation. Because I don't have an issue with they pitching for votes. Is that right? No,
it is not.
Not but we are pitching for. We are pitching for votes because we are all going to pitch for votes. NBC is going to pitch for votes. We are also going to pitch for votes. No. But what I'm saying is that I'll have issues when we are attacking the very institutions that we need to make the system work. That's what I'm saying. As a lawyer, I cannot fathom why we will try to rope the president in. Because the judiciary, the body, the institution that we, the people of Ghana, gave power to adjudicate on matters, they weren't. There's no evidence that the president interfered in any form, shape, or. And sometimes, you see, what we should understand is that we all have opinions. the fact that somebody so on this birth set issue, we all have opinions. For all we know, for the Supreme Court have stated their opinion on the birth set issue. Maybe you may disagree, you understand, and it has something to do even to do with party. Because I can tell you can find some strong NPP people, or let's say lawyers, who disagree with what's it called, the decision of the Supreme Court. We should be able to discuss the issue.
Disagree with that.
No, another time we will have a discussion because we need explanation. You understand? But the point is we should try and segregate the issues
from what my brother is saying is to say that decisions of the Supreme Court should not be criticized.
I'm not saying that.
That is what you're
saying. I'm not saying that. No, what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
to criticize the decision.
No. And you should analyze what you're saying here. What you're saying is to say that in fact the judicial is so weak that you don't even need law. Yes. And I'm saying that on the issue of the birth set, we all have opinions. What if the opinion of her lordship, Justice Tokunu, is in line with the opinion of the Supreme Court, and that opinion could change because there are so many cases where, let's say in 19 example on the definition of what of nationalization on the definition of nationalization. Nationalization. Let's say in the 70s. What concerns nationalization right now is different. Right now we have what we call expropriation, creeping expropriation. Because that's what I'm saying. The law is not static; it changes, and there are so many instances in the when you take the history of the law, where certain laws, when you take the gay issue in South Africa, they defined marriage some time ago to be the union between a man and a woman. Right now, that definition of marriage in South Africa has changed. We pray in Ghana here to never change. We pray that in Ghana here. No, it won't change. Right. And so for me, the point I'm trying to make is the Jackie Quayson case, I don't see any issue with it. Insofar as the institution that we ourselves created to guard these things worked. They worked. On the crime, on the issue of the crime, what exactly is the crime? They're saying that was he swore. So then the point is that what's it called? He committed perjury. Let us allow the systems to work. When the systems work, then you have a better chance of even doing our politics there. And I don't know as to whether they want to keep Jackie Quayson. I think that's a decision that is within the NDC's purview. I'm not going to go there because really, but at the end of the day, in 2 months' time, elections are going to happen in Assin or Asin North, and like we were strong, it will give an indication of the mood, the feelings of Ghanaians. I hope that my party can go there, do the campaign right, and make and put us in the position where we can annex.
Are you joining the vice president in the campaign?
Another Alan John Kojo Chairman will be in Assin North. And not, Another Alan practically won the Koku election for us. Well, the person they were not going to vote when they saw Alan when he made the pitch. You understand? When the way he did for it, they said, "Oh, we were angry with these people, but for Alan, let's go out and vote." Exactly that's what's going to happen in Assin North. So I'm not going to join the vice president. I'm going to join Alan John Kojo Chairman as we decide.
Now John in his.
He's called John. It's not like that John though. And that's how I told you that in 2024. He's called Alan John. So in 2024, they're going to be the battle of the Johns, the John Derby. and the John with Chairman as his surname is going to win that derby.
Yes. And so I was coming to that. The vice president has picked forms to contest the flag bearership of the NPP. Briefly, Honourable, your thoughts on that? Is it going to pose a challenge to John Mahama in the 2024 general elections?
Well, absolutely not. I have said that in the village of the blind, the one-eyed man is the king. Within the NPP, you have several people who are contesting, and you have 2 front runners. Yeah. There's no denying the fact that the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, and Honorable Alan Chilmantin are the front runners. But in every political, dynamics, you always have an underdog. The underdog could surprise people, or he could be the most influencer in the sense that depending on the votes he got, that would determine which of the candidates would win. And as far as I'm concerned, I think that underdog is Honorable Kennedy Ajay Pong. Kennedy has been working tirelessly. So the others are yet to pick their forms. Maybe you would have to tell us when Alan Chilmantin is going to pick his form. The good thing about it is that the two front runners, none of them can insulate himself from the economic mess that has been created. None of them. I've seen that there is that desperate attempt to insulate Honorable Alan Chilmantin from the mess created. And I say you cannot do that. You can't do that because Alan Chilmantin has been a member or had been a member of the economic management team. And he took credit to the voodoo economics Dr. Baumia was churning out at the University of Central University. You remember, every day he was holding, or every month he was holding lectures there. And anytime he had this lecture, Dr. Honorable Alan Chilmantin would be seated. Now, the mess that is created, Alan Chilmantin, Dr. Mahmoud Baumia cannot insulate themselves from that mess. The good people of this country are going to vote in 2024, taking into considerations what President Kufuor said in 1996. Nothing is working in this country. And the elections we are getting into in 2024 are going to be elections contested on issues, contested on what the NDC has done and what the MPP has done. If Dr. Mahmoud Baumia is elected as their presidential candidate, we are going to find out that he had managed the economy of this country. As the chairman of the economic management team, we are going to look at unemployment rate as they inherited it in 2006, which was 6.8.
16.
No, 6.8.
No, I said 16. You said
2016. 6.8. In fact, by December 2016, it has even come down from the 6.8 to about 6.5. Now, what is unemployment today? 17.4. We're going to find out debt to GDP. It was a little over 60%. What is debt to GDP now? We're going to find out our debt stock. Our debt stock, President Mahama borrowed a little below 50 billion, and there are projects to show. Those projects include the phase one of the interchange at Bokwasi interchange. Phase one of the Bochebe Lamte interchange. It includes the circle interchange. It includes the Rich Hospital. It includes the regional hospital, constructed, built across the country. It includes the Eastern Corridor. It includes the phase one of the Kumasi Airport. It includes the phase one of the Tamale International Airport. It includes everything. Now, when we juxtapose that with over 480 billion borrowed by this president when there is nothing to show, we're going to look at the level of corruption in this country. The lowest of the NDC, as by the Afro Barometer, Corruption Perception Index, the lowest the NDC ever chalked was 43%. And that is what this government is celebrating. The highest we ever had as a country was under President Mahama when we had 48%. We are going to look at how much are we now spending for the importation of rice and poultry products in this country. President Mahama was spending $450 to $500 million. Today, we are spending over $2 billion. We are going to look at decency in governance. And when I say decency in governance, it has to do with how the international community look at us and how they look at us today. So these are the issues. So if anybody thinks that the 2024 elections are going to be contested on propaganda, the people of this country are now sophisticated enough to know the difference between propaganda and what have been achieved. So that is why I say that none of these candidates, whether Mr. Alan Chilmantin or Dr. Baumia, whoever emerges as the flag bearer of the NPP, we are going to contest the elections of what he participated in producing in government under President Nanado and what President Mahama indeed participated as a vice president and delivered as a president. Participated as a vice president under Prof. Millers, and what he delivered as a president. That is what we are going to get into the election for. But I can tell you, we have no fear whatsoever among them. My only worry is that their contest is becoming so acrimonious because of the Achim faction and the Asante faction in the NPP.
Thank you so much.
And because some think that the president and the Achim Mafia are supporting Dr. Baumia because he's the one they think can protect the loot that President Nanado and his entire family engages in. And some also think that Alan Chilmantin is not competent. He has never achieved anything successful. When he came with starch, you know, remember, the starch, it failed. He came with Made in Ghana, it failed. Nothing. He has nothing positive. When he came as a minister for trade under this government, you remember what he hasn't achieved anything. 1D1F, which he claimed to be his baby, he was so disrespected that they created a secretariat and put it at the Flagstaff House. Yet he didn't have the courage to resign. If Mr. Alan Chilmantin wants us to give premium to him, he should have resigned long before. So none of them is going to insulate himself from the mess that is created. The only difference between the two is that one is a known liar and the other one is a trickster.
Right.
That makes sense.
Kazu, briefly.
Very, very. So, contrary to what my brother, Comrade Mutala, is saying, one of the strongest points of Alan Chilmantin is that he's a non-achiever. He's a non-achiever. He's talking about, I'm wearing what's called African food. You all know the Friday way. The starch thing that usually is a fixation or is propaganda, via propaganda. It's not true. It's not true. It's not true. But you see, the beauty about Alan Chilmantin is when I talk about his competence, you can even look at his competence outside of politics and in politics, and his ability to formulate policies and see the policies through. You talk about Empretech, Enterprise Africa, UNDP, very successful there. You talk about Alan Chilmantin as a U.S. Ghana ambassador to the U.S. AGWA, the Millennium Compact.
It was a disaster.
It was a disaster. AGWA was a disaster.
So
another time you talk and then we will counter.
ACP
So you talk and then we will counter. You understand?
No,
so AGWA Millennium Challenge, the African way, what he did with what's called African way. Talk about one of the most phenomenal achievements, that's the ACFTA, and what ACFTA pretends for our development, not just as Ghana, but as African people, the automobile industry, the 1D, what's called 1F. And so with all that, I'm very glad when my brother here says that in 2024, it will be an issue-based campaign. I'm already talking about the John Derby. In 2024, it's going to be an issue-based campaign. And NPP's best bet at breaking the 8, so far as issues are concerned, so far as character is concerned, so far as competence is concerned, so far as credibility is concerned, then we have no other person than Alan John Kojo Chilmantin.
Right. Thank you so much. Don, briefly.
Bless quickly. You know, in accounting, we have similar to law. I can say similar to law. We have standard, we have laws. They evolve, they change, and all that. But the principle, the underlying principle remains the same. That is what I don't find in law. That is why I say I don't believe in law. But we will all need law to organize ourselves. But you cannot change the underlying principle. And every time when it suits you, you jump out of it. No. For many centuries, accounting principles have remained same, but it has evolved. Standards have been improved. There have been new pronouncements and all that. That exists. What does not exist in law, especially in Ghana's law, is the underlying principle always being changed. That is where I have my problems. Now with the NPP,
we take time to explain.
With the NPP, what is going on is a party that is fighting to solve an identity crisis. The party, what is going on between Achim, Ashantis, Northness, and the party's identity and all that. Well, there is no tradition called what something Dombo, whatever Dombo.
I just pray they don't do to Baumia what they did to distinguish respectful His Excellency Ali Imam.
Nobody did anything to Ali Baba. Mutala. Nobody did anything to Ali Baba. It's a democracy. You go and vote. You go and vote. Nobody appoints. You vote. Democracy.
Trust me. For me, I think that this identity crisis this party is suffering, and they will not survive it. They will not survive it because they've told themselves lies for many years, and that is why they will not survive it. But you see, one thing we should be doing in this country is that any time we mention performance, we should correlate it with an outcome. Yes, Alan did this, Alan did that. What was the outcome?
Zero.
The outcomes are not there to show. If you talk of Agua, during Agua, did Ghana establish trade surplus? No. We were suffering trade deficits. So what is Agua? Let us not have patience for...
what did he even do on Agua?
We were told about special initiatives and Kufuor and factories being built.
4 to 28
right?
million.
Did that increase our production in this country?
It did.
Check the figures. It did not.
From 4 to 28 billion.
No.
It did.
No.
Was Ghana the only country in Agua?
But from 4 billion to 28 billion.
Look. Sometimes we have not actually spelled it out right. Especially when we talk about debt to GDP that we handed over to them. No. We handed over to them in 2016 a debt servicing, total debt servicing of 10 billion as against domestic revenue of 36 billion. Today, or let's look at the established one, 2022, we are looking at 76 billion as against a debt servicing of over 48 billion. Our program for 2023 is 8 billion as against 176 total revenue that we have not been able, and I doubt if we will rake in those numbers. And therefore, let's try as much as possible to be honest with the figures. The figures shows that whether you are a member of the economic management team or the head of the economic management team, that team totally had failed Ghanaians. And that is settled.
Right. Thank you so much.
That was thank you so much. Trade balance.
Thank you so much.
You are mentioning trade balance.
Thank you.
At the first time we've recorded continuously trade balance.
Based on the investment.
We've registered trade balance.
I don't know if you know Ama Ataidu.
Yeah.
The playwright. Yeah, she passed this morning. At the age of 81. So the literature world has
suffered. Academia has lost.
Thank you so much for your time this morning, Honorable Comrade Murtala Mohammed. Thank you.
So you can just do the comrade without adding the
honor. I know.
And this one part, honorable comrade.
So that's Amata. She died this morning at the age of 81.
Wow.
May her soul rest in peace. Thank you so much, Council. Thank you. Prolific writer. And one thing I remember about her, she was very particular about how her name was spelled. Atta. If you did a double T, she was going to have an issue with you.
Oh, she lectured you or something?
No, but I've heard her speak.
A poet, a writer.
Yeah. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Do have a pleasant day. Catch you same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.
African.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to today's edition of The Couch. Today is the 30th of May, dying embers of the month. May is my favorite month for very obvious reasons. I'm sad to see May go, but June is coming. June is coming with all of its promise, and we are excited, about all the possibilities. Tonight on the show, because it's a lifestyle edition of the show, Tuesdays are for lifestyle, social issues. So because it's a lifestyle edition of the show, we thought to have some education, to create some awareness about something that we hear about a lot, but I dare say we know absolutely nothing about, myself included. Tonight, our conversation is on hypertension. Hypertension. How much do you know about hypertension? Do you know the role your lifestyle plays in you preventing hypertension, in you treating hypertension? How much do you know about that? How much do you know about the drugs, the effects it has on you? Most importantly, what are the myths about hypertension? What are the facts? What are the truths? All of these things. Great conversation this evening. I entreat you to get your bottle of water as we relax on the couch, and you relax on the couch, and you have a lovely, good evening. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to The Couch with moi, Amapra. Tonight, we are in conversation with learned people. You see, learned, let me mention their names. So I have in the studio with me Dr. Shirley Wiafe. She's a physician specialist and cardiology fellow in training. Hello, Doc.
Hi,
lovely to meet you.
Lovely to meet
Very
you
lovely
too.
to meet you. We have Dr. Kofi Techi Asamoah. He's physician specialist and cardiology fellow in training. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much.
Very lovely to meet you both.
Same.
Very lovely to meet you. See, we call some other people learned, but you are the real learned people. You know that, right? The things you people know, and Charlie, let's start from the myths. Actually, no, let's start from hypertension itself. What is it? Because everybody has said hypertension, but what is it?
Okay. So, basically speaking, hypertension is just elevated blood pressures. So, there's when you take a blood pressure reading, we have a systolic and a diastolic. So, the upper arm, which is the numerator, is a systolic, and that's the force with which your heart contracts. And then the lower part is the diastolic reading, which is usually lower than the upper one. And that is when the heart relaxes in between beats, the pressure that is generated. So there's a normal blood pressure. So ideally, a normal blood pressure should be anything below 120/80. Okay, when you are that's for the systolic, the upper reading. So when it's optimal, you should be below 120/80. That is the ideal. Between 120 to 129 for the upper part, it is normal. High normal is 130 to 139 for the systolic. So anything above 140/90 is considered hypertension. So that is, so ideally we should be below 120/80. That's the optimal reading. But when you are 140/90 and above, then that is the beginning of hypertension.
Wahala.
Yes, and you can only say for a fact after you've had a blood pressure reading with a SFIG. You will not know you have it until it is objectively assessed by measuring your blood pressure with a SFIG.
So it is absolutely possible to be going about your normal life, going up and down every day, eating, sleeping, going to work, living with it, and not have a clue.
Being clueless.
Yes, it's very possible. I've actually seen a patient like that. This was about 8 years ago. He was on his way to his wedding when he collapsed, and then he was brought into the hospital. He had a stroke. Blood pressure was through the roof, 240 over, was it 120 or so. So clearly, to get to this point, he had had hypertension for so long, but hadn't been picked up, except for his wedding day. And at that point, he had had a stroke. So it's very possible to go through your day-to-day activities with no limitation at all, but your blood pressure could be high.
Surely there are symptoms.
Unfortunately, hypertension doesn't have symptoms. Sometimes you may be lucky, it may give you a few headaches, but then on the whole, it doesn't have symptoms. The symptoms that you would experience are symptoms of the complications when they start to set in. That's the issue with hypertension.
What should we do? I mean, this is hey, this is scary stuff. You have no idea how you're scaring me right now. This is scary stuff. No, you have achieved it.
You don't mean to scare you.
No. What should we do? What should we do? Because you're saying headaches are very normal.
Yes.
The whole of last week I had headaches every day.
See?
Right?
Yeah.
So what should we do?
Exactly. That is why we as a society and globally, the month of May has been set up to commemorate hypertension, for us to educate the populace, to engage in advocacy, screening programs, to let the average Ghanaian know about hypertension and the havoc it can wreak on lives and on families. So, I mean, in terms of what is to be done, blood pressure checks are very important. But then the thing is, we don't look at hypertension as an isolated entity. Hypertension comes with a gamut of other cardiovascular disease conditions. So they kind of like tend to aggregate together.
They move together.
They move together. You know.
Trouble. So they come in pairs and
so
they reign.
Exactly. So it comes, they tend to aggregate together with bad sugars or high sugars, bad cholesterols, and some other conditions which increase your risk of developing the complications that we so dread. So like what he mentioned. So what needs to be done? We need to educate, okay? But then at the end of the day, you as a person must take responsibility for your own health. Our lives as they are now are very stressful. We need to manage stress. There are modifiable and non-modifiable risk factors which increase one's chances of developing hypertension. The modifiable ones are the ones you can do something about. So let's say if my lifestyle is very sedentary, I'm always driving from location A to location B. I hardly go for walks. I hardly exercise. I'm eating a lot of junk food. Okay? I'm smoking. I'm drinking alcohol excessively. I'm taking illicit drugs. People are on amphetamines, people are using cocaine, a lot of recreational drugs. I'm not managing stress. All these factors are factors that I can do something about. I'm not keeping an optimal weight, an ideal weight. So once the lifestyle, the things that you have control over, when you are able to do what it takes to bring that control to bear, then it would also reduce your risk in a way. Then there are factors you cannot do anything about. So those ones are mainly, we call them non-modifiable risk factors. Just by reason of the fact that you are black, just by reason of the fact that you are Asian, just by reason of the fact that...
Let's define Asian. Let's define Asian. What do we mean by Asian?
Okay.
Well,
from where to where? Not to cut you, but just to take some information and we go along.
So strictly speaking, we consider age over 55 as
we are not Asian.
But nowadays, it's starting to occur at even younger ages.
Don't do that.
So even though by strict definition we work with 55, I'm not sure if that's if we hold fast to it now, because things are happening at much younger ages now.
So it's dropped?
Yes. It's
everything else. Everything else has dropped?
Yes.
It has.
This one too?
Yes.
Yes.
It has, unfortunately.
Please go on. So 1, regular checks. 2, lifestyle. Yes. And I picked a few things. Smoking, drinking, not managing stress.
Not exercising.
Not keeping an ideal weight.
Yes. And then...
doesn't matter whether it's too skinny or too fat, right? Both are not good. or the fat is the problem?
So when you are more like the fat is
towards the side of...
Yes, towards the side of obesity, it's more of a problem.
So like me, it's okay.
It's okay. So it's okay. I'm sure you're okay. I'm sure your BMI is ideal.
Right. Please give us more information.
And so for the non-modifiable ones, we mentioned aging, we mentioned genetics.
Right.
So for some people, there's a family history of hypertension. You may have your dad, your mom being hypertensive. And so for you, chances are, the risk is so high because you are getting it the risk is coming from both arms of the family. So hypertension in the first degree relation is also a risk factor for developing hypertension in the successive generation. So that is something that you cannot do much about. But even with that, even though you have that high risk, if you work on the modifiables, it may delay how quickly you develop hypertension over time. And then, is there anything I've left out with the
no, I think in terms of the risk, the non-modifiable risk factors, I think that's pretty much it.
Yes.
Yes. As you said, there isn't really anything you can do about them, so we don't really focus too much on them when we are trying to advocate for things. We look more at the modifiable risk factors. Yes.
But I think that it's helpful if you know that once it's in my bloodline, I should be a little more careful.
Definitely.
Right.
Definitely.
So I mean, all in line with creating awareness.
Yes, definitely.
Okay. So, I mean, talk us through the process of just walking into a hospital and trying to get your blood,
the blood pressure check.
Your blood pressure check.
Yes, so actually, now a whole lot of pharmacies also have it.
Oh, okay.
So you don't necessarily need to go to a hospital. You can go to a neighborhood pharmacy. And again, we have a lot of automated machines that you can purchase and own for yourself. So then you just get it, you have it in the house, and you check from time to time. What we are advocating for is that you do it at least once a year, which is why May is dedicated to measurement month, May measurement month, so you check your blood pressures. But the more you are able to check it, the better. What matters is that you get to the place you're checking it, whether a hospital, pharmacy, sit, feet planted on the ground, not crossed. Yes.
Like this.
Yes. Ideally, quiet environment, no talking on the phone. The one measuring is not talking. You haven't had a cup of coffee or tea within about 30 minutes prior to checking. Because these are all things that could
stimulate.
Yes, could increase your blood pressure at that time. And then you check. Usually we discard the first reading. And you check another 2 times, 5 minutes apart. And then you average them. This is best practice for checking blood pressures. But you and I know that in the hospitals the numbers are so large.
Nobody has your time.
Yes, so then usually what is likely to happen is they do the first reading. If it's normal, they leave you alone. If it's high, then they ask you to rest and then it's checked again. Yes. But then really you should be able to check at any neighborhood pharmacy, clinic, hospital. And then if you're able to get the machine for yourself, you check. One reason why we advocate for that is we have a phenomenon called white coat hypertension, where being in the hospital setting, seeing a doctor, seeing a nurse, sort of gives you some anxiety and makes your blood pressure spike. So there are people who come to hospital and every day you check their blood pressures is high. You ask them to monitor in the house and every day it's normal. So that's white coat hypertension. So if you have the machine yourself, then you check in the house and then this white coat effect is eliminated. Then we know what your true blood pressure readings are.
Right.
Yes.
All sounds wonderful. I want us to debunk a few of the myths we have, and then we can look at proper education. We have some slides. Yeah,
sure.
Today I'm all for it. I'm ready. I'm in the classroom with my pen and my paper. So let's start on some of the myths. You know, what are the myths? What are the truths? You know.
So well, one is that if you start taking blood pressure medication, then because you started taking the medication, you are hooked to it for life. You are not hooked to it because you are taking the medication. It's because your blood pressures are high. And so you start taking it, blood pressure starts to come down. Don't stop on your own. Yes, there are some people that on medication, their blood pressures come low to the point that we are actually able to discontinue and then observe at regular intervals. If it starts going up again, we restart. But that wouldn't be classified as a cure. Hypertension is not cured. It is basically what happens is the arteries stiffen up. Okay, well, before that, there are two types. You have primary and secondary. Primary accounts for about 95% of hypertension cases. And this occurs just because. So as part of aging and lifestyle and all, the arteries start to stiffen. So then they're not able to relax and contract based on your activity to make your blood pressure fluctuate between high and low. So it's usually generally high. These people are likely to be on medication for an unspecified duration of time because the medication is needed to help control the blood pressures. Then we have secondary hypertension. This occurs, so this is the commonest type that occurs in kids, but then in adults it's about 5%. This occurs because you have another condition. So for example, yes, there's a kidney disease, and as part of the kidney disease, you're manifesting hypertension. As part of thyroid disease, you're manifesting hypertension. If you treat the underlying disease, then the hypertension is likely to resolve. Right. Pregnancy is another one. So pregnancy, BPs go up, and some people, they deliver pregnant, and then the blood pressures resolve. Unfortunately, a few would persist and then transition into full-blown hypertension and will need treatment for that. So then, myth number one is that it's cured. Hypertension is cured. That isn't, and it's something that we need to have in our minds.
Okay. So once you get it, that's it. What? There's no cure. It's just managing.
Yes, we manage.
For the rest of your life, you're managing.
For the most part. Yes.
So there are people who have managed hypertension for 40 years, and they're perfectly fine. They are functioning perfectly in society. There are people who are diagnosed in their 40s who are 85, 90. They still come to clinic for review. They're just coming because it's their review date. Exactly. No complaint. Oh, doctor said I should come, so I've come. There are people like that.
My dad is an example. Wow. My dad is past 70. He's been on his antihypertensive for over 30 years.
He's fine.
Very, very fine.
Right. Yes. Right. But it's, I don't want us to stay here too long, but it's a real thing. And I feel that we're about generally most things. Right? I feel as though as soon as you start, I mean, even for general multivitamins, once you want to stop, you feel deficient in a way. I don't know if I'm making, especially for very high performing people, I'll put myself in the category. You're always active, you're always running around. Sometimes you feel, oh, let me get a little help, because my own system is failing me every now and then. But once you start, if you do not take these medications for maybe 2 or 3 days, you tend to feel very down. So then in my mind, I'm getting addicted. I need to stop and figure out a way to let my body deal with my body. I don't know. So I can understand the reasoning behind why somebody would think, oh, once I start taking pressure medicines, I'm hooked for life, like I'm addicted, or, I can understand that. It's just a lame mind talking, isn't it? The science doesn't back it. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So the science doesn't back it.
It doesn't support.
No.
Yes, because if you discontinue, then now what was bringing your pressures down is gone. So your pressures go up, and they stay up persistently, and then put you at risk of various complications. But then if you're on the medications, then the medications are giving you the control that you need. In the event where you think you may be experiencing certain side effects or whatever, you return to your doctor. Doc, this is what's happening to me. So can we have a look at is it from the medication? If yes, what can we do about it? Exactly. But don't take matters into your own hands and say, okay, this is happening. I'm certain it's from the medication. I'm done. Because the next thing that happens, in a few years, you'll be rushed into the emergency unit with something else.
So it's about you doing a risk-benefit analysis. So the risk of not being on your medication, as opposed to having to live with that little inconvenience of taking your medication every day and surviving,
How
being there for your family. Exactly. Being there for your family. Because we've had strokes in 45-year-olds. There was a young gentleman I saw, very fit-looking young man on the outside. He was actually a bouncer at a nightclub. So you can imagine the physique. And this man suddenly goes down with a stroke. And his young wife now has to leave work and take care of him. And unfortunately for him, his was quite dense, so he was bedridden. I mean, that is not the kind of life you wish for yourself or for your family.
At 45?
At 45, not at all. You wouldn't want that. So it's about balancing the two and then deciding what's more important. Because certainly taking your medication and keeping your blood pressures under control, I mean, would serve more of a benefit to you and your family than going off them.
Absolutely.
That is certainly not the way to
absolutely.
go.
Okay. So that's myth number 1. If we could do about 3 myths.
So myth number 2, I think I would like to talk about one of the main reasons why a lot of the male population tend to go off their antihypertensives.
It sounds interesting already.
Yeah, so it's a phenomenon with the males. We don't tend to have that with the females. So a lot of them come in, they come through the clinic, and you realize that, oh, you were managing them, they were doing well on their medication. And at some point in time, they come in, blood pressures are poorly controlled. Only for you to find out that they've stopped taking their medication because they're experiencing some erectile dysfunction or sorts. And the thing is, the very pathophysiology of hypertension, the disease process itself, actually facilitates the development of erectile dysfunction.
Let's understand the dysfunction. What's happening?
So they get sexually weak in bed.
Oh, weak?
Yes.
I thought it was hyper.
So either they are... No.
Okay.
No, so it's more of a downside.
Right.
To
Nobody likes the downside.
Not at all. To their sexual function. So then it becomes one of the major reasons why a lot of men tend to go off their antihypertensives. But then the very disease process itself engineers that. So diabetics, hypertensives, by the very nature of the way the disease process damages the lining